Do you really need a college education? My premise is that you don't. It's a nice to have, it's not a must have, despite what they'll tell you at school and in the media. Welcome, colleagues. George Sloan. This is Myford University. Consider subscribing, giving us a like and a share. Go over to myforduniversity.com and sign up for the mailing list. A lot of great material over there. Um, do you really need a college education? Let's discuss this a little bit. Uh, if you look back in time, you'll realize that college, for everybody, and there's a footnote there, for everybody, is a relatively new construct, something that kind of came around about 80 years ago. And there's reasons for that. And I'll discuss those too. But while college has been around since the Middle Ages, it was not something that everyone did. It was a very small segment of the population, whether it be in Europe or even in the United States. But college kind of picked up steam in the mid 1900s. And there's a reason for it. When you get right down to it, college started to come on strong when people came back from fighting overseas in World War II. They instituted the GI Bill, and a lot of these folks went to school because they needed to reintegrate them into the workforce and the economy. And that's when it started. And then it escalated in the 60s because they all wanted their kids to go to college. And then it really picked up in the 80s. And in the 90s, they really pushed to make it everyone should go to college, to the point where it's gotten ridiculous. And the traditional higher education institutions lost their way. People got misguided. Uh, College is relevant for some people, necessary for others, but the vast majority of people that go to school shouldn't really be there. They should be doing something else. They only figure that out after they've graduated and they're either underemployed, unemployed, or dissatisfied with their employment, and they're in heaps and heaps of debt. And the reason why I say, it's a relatively new construct, because if you were to look back at your grandparents or great grandparents and before that, you'll realize that most of them probably didn't go to college. Most of them went into the trades. They went in and became shopkeepers. They performed various services. They there was a place for people, and again, we were an agrarian society for many, many years into the 1800s until the Industrial Revolution kicked in. Then people went and became factory workers. But even then, you didn't really need college. So if you were to look back at your family tree, you'll probably be surprised that college doesn't show up unless you're from a family of academics from a long period of time. You're going to see it doesn't really show up until really big until the mid 1900s. I mean, of my four grandparents, only one of them went to college. I think it was Lehigh University, and I think he became a pharmacist. But I didn't get to know him. Uh, the bottom line is, it was more rare, whereas today it's expected. And unfortunately, it shouldn't be expected of everyone. I always think the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule kicks in. Uh, my feeling on it is that parents, teachers, guidance counselors, politicians, the media, society in general started to sell, and others started to buy the narrative that you must go to college to succeed in life, which is total bullshit. There are many people who have succeeded without college, have succeeded dropping out of college. And then, of course, again, I'm not totally down on college. I just think that for the most part, for most people, it's not necessarily the right fit. The thing is, what do you do instead? Well, my feeling is that you live in an age today where the ability to substitute the traditional higher education route, which again is only about 80 years old, in the form that it is today. Again, colleges have been around since the Middle Ages, if you go back to Europe, but in its current form, it's a relatively new construct. But today, you live in a situation where you are able to access education in multiple ways and in ways that your grandparents and great grandparents could only dream of. With the internet, the access to information, the access of knowledge and skills, the ability to get education in multiple formats. And you got to remember, not everyone learns the same way. I mean, again, college doesn't work for everybody. Some people have to learn by trial and error. They have to get their hands on it, and that's how they learn. Um, you don't have to go to college. In fact, going to college, unless you're in certain fields, really doesn't make sense. Really doesn't make sense. I mean, if you're in STEM, which I talk about all the time, this is one of my few disclaimers or exemptions. STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, you're probably well served going to college. If you're going into law or education, you're kind of required. It's an artificial barrier to entry. Again, it's another conversation for another time. But for most other things, you really don't need it. In fact, you're putting yourself behind the eight ball. You're spending 4 good years of your working life and a small treasure to go and get it. And you're forfeiting the opportunity cost of working, which you're getting paid, and getting the experience. So, what are your alternatives? Well, I would look at what your grandparents and great grandparents did. Some went and went into retail. Some of them became shop owners. Some of them became service providers. Some of them went into the trades. One of my grandparents, my grandfather, became very distinguished and an expert in his field to the point of almost world renown. And he didn't go to college. He was self educated and he continued to educate himself throughout his life. Again, I didn't get to meet him, but I know of him through other people. And I know the things that he did. And he continued to educate himself. My grandmother, one of them, went to college, went to school to the fourth grade, but she continued her education for years by reading and by doing crossword puzzles and jumbles because she wanted to improve her vocabulary. Um, if I were saying to someone today, what should you consider doing? My feeling is that you'd be well served to follow some of those early models. Maybe you go and become a salesperson. Maybe you go and become a marketer. Maybe you become a writer. Maybe you become, a merchant of some sort. There are a number of different approaches. And again, today it's all there. It's just people have kind of crapped all over the trades, for example. The trades are dying for people to come in because I do construction project management as part of what I do. It's only about half of what I do. I also do IT and logistics and other, project management work, process improvement. But the graying of the trades is a real thing. And quite frankly, they are eager and hungry, and they pay extremely well if you get into the right ones. And most people think, oh, electrician, plumber, and HVAC. Have you looked into elevator maintenance installers and maintenance people? Very well paid. Um, the bottom line is you have a number of choices that you can circumvent and go around going into the traditional higher education route. Your grandparents did it, your great grandparents probably did it, and it's not necessarily the only way to succeed. Again, a lot of people have sold this idea. It's a problem. I think society is starting to open their eyes and recognize it. I've been complaining about it for a while. The thing that I always look at it as my when I first met my wife, she was always impressed that I had an MBA and I had a master's. And I said, listen, it's not as impressive as you think. Uh, in fact, I probably could have learned all of it in less time and for less money. Uh, yes, it's a great credential. And when I got it, it made sense. Now, not so much. And if I were, starting out again today, I would not go that route. What I would do is pursue one of these other approaches. I advise you to look into Mike Rowe, who has been touting for years to go into the trades. I would look into Cody Sanchez. She has been touting buying small, boring businesses. There are a lot of baby boomers who are looking to get out of their, small businesses, and their kids don't want to do it. They don't want to go down that route, and they're looking to sell. So there's a lot of opportunity for small, boring businesses that provide a nice living and a nice cash flow. And some of these baby boomers are probably more than willing to structure a deal that you could get into a business with. Furthermore, because of the internet and the connectivity that we have, and hell, even the whole Zoom meetings and Teams meetings, the ability to work from anywhere and work with people around the world has never been easier. And quite frankly, there's gateways to do all sorts of work. There are people that are looking for, specialized knowledge and skills. If you are savvy with, building websites or, social media marketing, SEO, search engine optimization, you can actually build a nice little consulting career. So there are a number of approaches that you can take. Starting a small business has never been easier. In terms of, getting training and education, there's apprenticeships, there's mentoring, find a mentor. The other thing, I don't talk about it as much, but the military provides quite a benefit for someone that is looking to get some skills. Go and learn how to be a mechanic in the military. Go and learn computers in the military. Go and learn you know mechanical and engineering work in the military. Go into the military police, serve, come out. You get the benefits of them paying for some of your education, and you can go right into either the trades, or you can go into, if you get into piloting and aviation, you might be able to go right into, the commercial airlines, for example. There's a number of different approaches. Again, there's not something for everyone, but, college is not the only way. There are multiple ways of doing things. The days of go to college to succeed, I think they're over. They really are. For when you're talking for everyone, uh, again, for some people it makes sense. For some people it's necessary, but for others, you can shortcut your success without college. And I've provided you a few ideas here, and I'm going to be providing a whole bunch more. I'm developing some pathways that I'll do a couple of videos on. If I were looking at a pathway, I highly recommend getting certifications. In fact, I'm doing a little research and trying to get together a video real quick to talk about ones that have very simple prerequisites and don't have a large time or money commitment, but actually provide a nice, living if you can get a position based off of those certifications. So when I think about things, I think college, its day has come and gone, and there's new approaches and new ways to move forward going in the future. Um, Trying not to ramble on this one, but just trying to give you a conversation. If you were sitting here and asking me, how I feel about it, and why college might not make sense anymore, I think there's a few really good reasons and points that I've just made. And if you're interested in this kind of material and you'd like more, you're in the right place. Subscribe to the channel. This is the Myford University channel. There's also a sub channel that's MBA oriented and dedicated. That's the MBA Accelerator. Consider going over to the myforduniversity.com website. Our approach is learn it fast and apply it faster and get real world results. So if you're interested in that, hope to see you. Thank you for viewing today. I'm George Sloan, and we'll see you the next time.